Women's Fight, and Beccarria's Prison Lite. I am, as always, your host, Christopher Paul Dugdale, MEDMA. We are Duncanville High School in these United States, and today is November 9th, 2020. On this date in history, 82 years ago today, the Germans began legal terrorizing of the Jewish community. They ransacked 100 synagogues, killed hundreds of people, destroyed thousands of businesses and homes. Okay? So, one of those things where you can't just ignore what's happening around you. So, everyone have a great day today. Sorry to end on the dour note. Like 2 weeks till Christmas. Does that save anything? No, because it's a lie. It's 2 weeks till Thanksgiving. But really, it's even 2 weeks from Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's on the Thanksgiving's going to be on the 27th. So that is 18 days from now. Yeah. I'm sorry. In the midst of everything that's going on with the Enlightenment movement, you also have a focus on Romanticism in art. Okay, and this is more of an idealized world than our thought of romance, and you're not necessarily trying to woo someone so much as you are of creating this ideal world. And so when you hear the term Romanticism, it's not always dealing with, intimate, personal relationships. In a lot of cases, it has to do with an idealized world. Basically, people struggle to create that idealized world. Mary Astell is someone who comes up with this revolutionary thought that in a serious proposal to the ladies, that women need to be better educated, and that some women were as capable as men. Which again you can see here. This is a not direct frontal assault. This is more of a sideways attack at how society's been put together. So kind of in the same frame as what other people during the Enlightenment. This is what Mary Astell was doing with women's rights. And also some reflections upon marriage. Again, these titles are not one that seem revolutionary. It just kind of seems like they're trying to say that they want to have a different world. Okay? They're calling for equality in marriage, that men and women in relationships are equal. Okay? At least some equality. Okay? So it's still revolutionary for her to come out with these concepts in a world that's really not her own. She's living in a man's world, and she's just kind of a occupant. Mary Wollstonecraft, this is someone who is really extraordinary. Her daughter was Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein. Lord Byron was her son-in-law. She takes a look at the feminist movement, and she writes something called Thoughts on the Education of Daughters, and she didn't like the thought of basing your education on your gender. Give everyone these common points in education. Okay, so basically, if you're trying to form these new Republican governments, and that a lot of times women are the people that are raising the children, that if you're not teaching women the same thing you're teaching men, they're going to lose these foundational pieces, and they're not going to be able to teach the next generation. And then she comes out with the extremely controversial, although just for that time, that the only difference really between men and women was physical strength. That women had all of the same intelligence and abilities that men did, but they just lacked the physical strength of men. Anyway. Okay, so there had to be a center for all these people to get together, and this is something we didn't talk about last time. But this is one of the places where women really get to play a key role. And this is in these salons where they would attract these philosophers, philosophers, economists, and writers, and they would have conversations about key issues facing Europe, the development of these new types of representative government, Montesquieu's separation of powers. So all of these different things, Locke's tabula rasa. So all these things were being discussed in these salons. And Marie Therese de Geoffrin, she is one of these hostesses for 25 years. She has a really famous salon. And she invites famous writers, foreign thinkers, and rulers that come, and this is an environment where it's safe to have these type of conversations. Okay? The Marquis du Deffand, she left her husband to create a place where Montesquieu, Hume, Voltaire would come and speak, and she wanted a safe place for all these different people to come in and create this perfect world. Rococo. Now, this is a lot. This to me, and you can disagree with me if you want, and other people can, and other people do, but to me, this is kind of the creation of Impressionism. Okay, just because you have, instead of all the sharp images, it's a little bit less sharp. Some of the images you see right here, lighthearted people, nothing really stressful going on in the image here. You see more gold, more color, more light color than you see in a lot of the previous works. Lush settings. Look how pretty the areas around them. Anton Watteau is one of the people who helped refine this type of art. Gentlemen and ladies in elegant dress. Basically, lifestyles of the rich and famous in art. That's what this was. Balthasar Newman, okay, the pilgrimage church of the Versenheiglen, okay, that's over on the left-hand side there. You have the two large towers outside. Daylight was very important for lighting up the building, so you can see the images below as well, okay. So you can see that's all natural light that's lighting up the place. Pretty spectacular ceilings and arches. Again, it's a new type of architecture. On the right-hand side, you see the bishop's residential palace of Scorborn. You have the big staircase, which... What the crap did my staircase go? Sorry, I thought I had a picture for that. I tell you what, I'm going to sneak it back in here after I finish presenting this, and then it'll be there the whole time. I don't know what happened. You look at the painting on the ceiling there, okay? The painting on the ceiling there is larger than one on the Sistine Chapel. So if you ever get a chance to go there, it is pretty breathtaking. I mean, that's a pretty magnificent painting in its own right. And think about the poor painter who's got to do that. That just would suck. It would suck. Neoclassicism, okay? This drew on stories of ancient Greece and Rome, so this is kind of going back a little bit to the Renaissance, because again, that's kind of where the start comes for the Renaissance. Jacques-Louis David paints the Oath of Hammurabi, and this shows three brothers pledging themselves to their father, and the women are looking really emotionally behind, as these men are promising to do basically whatever warfare their father requires. Okay? Again, you have service of men and you have emotion of women. Okay? So it kind of is trying to set the stage for these sexes. Now we will move on to the high culture of the Enlightenment. Okay? So the wealthy focused on reading the latest printed materials or novels. Because, they were expensive and hard to get, and this is one thing that the wealthy could do to kind of show a difference between themselves and the poor. Recent periodicals, newspapers, philosophical treatises in salons and coffee houses. So basically, they get a view of the world that the common man doesn't get because the common man is having to work nonstop. And public sentiment, okay, a care for the populace, okay. It's being influenced by emotion rather than reason or fact, trying to keep the people happy. The French will find it's very important to do that during the French Revolution. Okay, so what do you do with the people? So popular culture, okay. Traditionally, peasants and the poor spread their ideas through oral storytelling, and or discussion of religious service. So basically, things passed down from their parents and the stories told, and sometimes the stories changed over time. Discussion of religious service, what they'd just gone over. The poor literate, they read cheaply printed books that focused on things like chivalry, religion, folk wisdom, weather information. A lot of the things that, a lot of the things about how to treat other people. Public opinion, this is the prevalent views of the general public, what the public thinks about something. Now, this is also a time where you see a coffee house pop up. This is where middle-class people would go to read and discuss new science or the latest novel. So this is not really the same thing as a salon, but this is kind of a salon for the middle class. You also have Freemason lodges, and this is another place where people could get together and meet. This is even in the United States at this time. Early presidents and founding fathers went to these places to talk. So did people like Mozart, and they improved through education and technology, trying to make the world a better place. Okay, now this is another groundmaking moment. This is Joseph Addison and Richard Steele wrote the Spectator. This is articles of public interest. This is really trying to keep the masses busy. They're praising family, marriages, courtesy. Kind of like the whole thing of chivalry that was pointed towards the lower classes before. So this is keeping them entertained, so they keep out of everyone else's business. Okay, Eliza Haywood wrote something called The Female Spectator, and this focuses on how to raise your child or rear your child. Actually, you raise animal, you rear children. Okay, and household management. How to be a good woman of the times. Okay, so basically just reinforcing what we call now stereotypes. Newspapers were also published for the first time in 1702, where you could get updates on what was going on in the world at that point. Okay, so Enlightenment novels. Okay, you have Samuel Richardson, who wrote Pamela or Virtue Rewarded, and this is a poor woman whose master is trying to entice her to have sex with him, and so she spurns him, and because she spurns him, he falls in love with her and asks her to marry him. So because she became chaste, her master decides that she is now worth having, and then wants to get married to her. So I don't know if this is trying to push people to play hard to get, but anyway, that's kind of the story of Pamela, or Virtue Rewarded. Because she was virtuous, she got married. Henry Fielding wrote The History of Tom Jones, It's not unusual to write a book about me. It's not unusual to Actually, it's a different Tom Jones. It's a satire, so it follows an orphan around England to make fun of the hypocrisy of the time. So, nothing like writing a satire to comment on everyone else and make fun of the people around you. So, moving on. Okay, so Voltaire, you remember him. He writes a book called The Age of Louis the 14th. Okay, but so he's not only trying to tell what the time was like about Louis the 14th, but everyone that was around them. So it's kind of an interesting way to grasp history at this point, and I think it's a little bit of a push away just from, great people and great events, but also the people around them. There's not a lot of social histories written about what the average person was like. Edward Gibbon, another historian, writes, well, actually, I don't know that I'd call Voltaire a historian, but The Age of Louis was definitely a historical work. The decline and the fall of the Roman Empire. And in this, he blames Christianity as being the reason that Rome will fall. So you have a push past, normal pop culture into a little bit more serious of literature. Okay, so let's look at literacy and primary education. Okay, so in schools you were taught, the things that they taught you were things to reinforce who was in charge. Okay, also being part of the upper class, kind of to be a members only group, they tried to focus on classical languages. And that's not really something useful to the lower class, so lower class doesn't embrace learning foreign language even though it opens up opportunities. In doing business with the upper class, they feel like you're part of them. Okay? Colleges also refuse to use new scientific advances, so, some aspects of education at that point are just behind, are just kind of behind things. Okay? Now, Germany was really the most advanced educationally. Okay, they have what's called gymnasiums. These are secondary schools in Germany where they would test people and put them into educational programs that were better for where they're trying to go. Okay, the real school or the real school, this focuses on practical skills to prepare people for business, or actually, I'm sorry, men for business, not women. That opens in 1747. Okay. And colleges at this time were also started for the elite to meet the needs of upper class children. Basically, how do you become part of the ruling class? Okay, so now we look at people that have been put into debtors' prisons for life for as little as $1, people that were tortured, and Caesar Beccarria, he writes on crimes and punishments. And he's against the way that they've been doing prisons and punishment for crimes from before. And he said that reason and certainty should guide law in the penal system instead of trying to match a punishment with the severity of whatever crime he did. And torture just got people excited about criminals and not really a respect for the law. Okay. In the U.S., prisons were starting to be created for reform and rehabilitation. Okay? And so as a result of this work, where people really start to look at how we treat people who've committed crimes, some leaders of countries will codify laws as a result of this. They'll ban torture, and in some cases, they'll ban capital punishment, which is really a major change from things that have happened before. Enlightenment medicine. You have to remember it's past a period where you just weren't allowed to do anything with dead bodies. You know, if someone was dead, you didn't touch their body after they died, so you can do research on it. So this opens up an opportunity for them to look into what happens to people, try and figure out why they died, and a whole new system. Okay? Uh, so, the University of Leiden, this is where Rembrandt's paintings of human dissections, kind of a new way of looking at people's bodies. And then you have a real attempt of trying to create modern medicine. Okay, so you have the Royal College of Physicians and the Royal College of Surgeons, and they tried to get rid of healers and midwives, and have a pretty elite group of people that knew what they were doing, or at least by their standards at the time. It's still not anything where if you went back in time, you'd really want them to treat you, but it's a lot better than what happened in the 100 years before. So we come to the close of yet another day of the Enlightenment. We look at the women's movement coming into play and a move towards a modernism, a safe future for people. So I hope everyone has a great day, and I will see you all soon. Yes.